This is Paul with American Hydroponics, and welcome to our April webinar. This month, the topic is on food safety, and we're going to give you a food safety overview. It seems like a big, huge, daunting issue, but it doesn't have to be. And for the next 20 minutes or half hour, we're going to talk a little bit about food safety and hopefully leave you with a good overview as to what you can expect so that you can be assured that you are producing safe, wholesome produce at your farm. So I am going to, we are in our working greenhouse today, so if you hear some vents, there's some motors running, that's what's going on, and I'll try to speak loud enough to speak over that, but this is a working greenhouse. As you can see behind me, the beautiful tomato plants we have growing, and over here to my left, we have some wonderful cucumbers, just beautiful. On your screen, I'm going to click over to some slides in just a moment, and if you want to see a bigger view of those slides, you can minimize the comment side of your screen. So let's go to that now, and let's start our food safety webinar. So, and we'll come down like this, and here we go, food safety. Okay, as I was saying, it's a topic that really could discourage some people from farming. Government regulations, red tape, obscure regulations, government intrusion, all of that. It doesn't have to be that daunting. And we're going to talk about that for the next few moments. The Food Safety Modernization Act, FSMA. The Food Safety Modernization Act was signed into law in January of 2011 by President Obama. And what this was the government changing its position. Prior to 2011, the government always reacted. If there was a foodborne illness or something like that, an outbreak of E. coli or something like that, the government would react and start certain things into motion. And the government said, we can do better than that. We can have our farms produce a safe food supply. And so they went from a reactive position to let's do something to make sure that our produce is safe to eat. And so that's what FSMA represents. The Food Safety Modernization Act is the next step from the federal government. From 1998, they put out the Guide to Minimize Microbial Food Safety Hazards for Fresh Fruits and Vegetables. And that told you basically how to minimize, just as it said, the biological hazards to your crop and how to have good practices in doing that. Anyway, the Food Safety Modernization Act, which you're going to be hearing more and more about, it's the first mandatory federal standard for the production of fruits and vegetables in the United States. And there are different compliance dates. It's actually started in January of 2017, the compliance dates, and the largest farms have about a year to come into compliance. The medium-sized farms have about the next year, small farms the next year. If farmers are growing just for farmers markets or to share with their neighbors, they don't really come into the purview of FSMA. But your customers, the people you sell your produce to, the restaurants, the schools, the hospitals, the stores, they will want to know that they are buying food that is safe for their customers to eat. Therefore, it really does behoove us to have good agricultural practices. It does behoove us to take seriously food safety and do everything we can to make sure that the product that goes out of our greenhouses and into or to our consumers is safe to eat. So that's what we'll be talking about. So what does it mean to comply with the federal mandate? Basically, it means you are doing everything you can to make sure your farm is growing, handling, and transporting produce that is safe to eat. That somebody can buy your produce at a store or eat it from a restaurant with confidence that it is safe to eat because the farmer has done everything he or she can do to make sure that it is safe to eat. There are 15 subparts to the federal mandate. We're not going to talk about all 15. Because all 15 don't apply to hydroponics greenhouse production. The Federal Food Safety Modernization Act has to do with crops grown in fields and orchards and all kinds of things. We're just going to take a look at the part of the mandate that has to do with hydroponically grown produce. Now, unfortunately, there's no list of rules. They don't send out a checklist that says do this, 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 and this, and you can check them off and voila, you have safe food. There's no FSMA certification. There is GAP, Good Agricultural Practices certification, and that will vary from state to state, so you'll need to check with your state's agricultural extension, usually through the state university or the state college, so you'll want to check on that. We will focus, as I said, on the section of the safety rule that has to apply to hydroponics. Crops grown in the field, lots of those irrigate from groundwater, from reservoirs or holding ponds. Hydroponics, we don't do that. Soil crops have to do with soil amendments. Hydroponics doesn't do with soil, so that doesn't apply to us. Growing in a greenhouse or in a warehouse with grow lights, we don't generally have to worry ourselves about wildlife running through our crops, deer stopping to nibble on the plants or defecating in the fields, nothing like that. We don't have to worry about that. So we're not going to go over that this afternoon. We are going to talk about the 4 areas that do affect hydroponics farming. That's worker health and hygiene, post-harvest handling, water purity, and then developing a good farm food safety plan. And I'll talk about more about that safety manual in a few moments. But basically what this whole mandate comes down to is really the farmer having some proactive common sense. The farmer being able to take a look at his farm and say, you know, that's an unsafe situation, we need to rectify that. Or that's a bad practice, we need to change that. So it's really common sense. Take a look around at your farm. Are there any hazards? Are there anything that worker's going to hurt and trip and hurt himself on? We need to fix that. Is there any way, just an obvious way that harmful bacteria is going to be passed on to a consumer via your produce? We need to fix that. Are there any problem areas we need to address? So just taking a look at your greenhouse and seeing what's going on, first of all, that's the first step. Just have some good proactive common sense and begin to develop, if you haven't already, develop good practices on your farm. And that's what FSMA comes down to, is having good practices. Well, let's talk about the first one, worker health and safety. Now, whether you are the only worker on your farm, or maybe you and a spouse or your children or friends or whatever, whoever helps you plant, transplant, harvest your produce, that's who we're talking about. And those people, we'll call them employees for right now, those employees need to follow good hygienic practices. They need to wash their hands. Most farms go so far as to have an in-service on how to wash your hands. Use soap, use water, how to dry your hands, and throw the disposable towel away afterwards, and have a place to dispose of. But having these practices in place, and then having training sessions and having log as your employees can sign in, yes, they've taken the training, they took it on this date, things like that goes a long way, and that will be included in your food safety manual. So you're establishing hand washing, good worker hygiene. You have toilet facilities. They're appropriately supplied. They're close enough to your farm that the workers can take advantage of them. So all of that thing. Again, most of it is common sense. Whether your workers wear gloves or not, if they are harvesting produce and then they touch something that is unsanitary, they need to either wash their hands or change their gloves. The gloves, latex gloves, are not required, but clean hands on your workers are required. That is what is going to cut down on your employee passing on harmful bacteria to the produce that it might be introduced to the consumer. As I said, make sure you have bathrooms close by, hand washing, as you look through your farm, you're going to see a number of other things that could go into worker training. Wearing hairnet, policy on jewelry, footwear, when visitors visit your greenhouse, the procedures you have them go through. They wash their hands, they put on a coat, or your workers wearing aprons and hairnets. All of that stuff goes into this. And then once you have those policies in place, the standard operating procedures, stick to them. It's not good enough to just say, yeah, we have a policy on that, and then not go by the policy. You need to go by the policy. So good worker health and hygiene, and then worker training. Document everything. That's the first step. Document everything. Post-harvest handling. So when it comes time, whatever day it is that you harvest, in an AmHydro greenhouse, we have the channel laid out. You can have a worker bring the channel to the harvest area, and then that worker can either wash his hands, or another worker who has clean hands harvest the produce, putting it into bins that have been cleaned or bags that are brand new, some kind of a sanitary thing so that it can be shipped to market, if that market is a restaurant or a store or a school, whatever it is, so that it can get to your consumers as hygienically as possible. Make sure that your harvest area is clean and free of mud and debris. Clean it up afterwards. A power washer once a week wouldn't be a bad thing to just keep that area clean. Cleaning the channel, cleaning the bins that you harvest or transplant the harvest in. All of those things have to do with the post-harvest handling. Again, common sense. The vehicle you transport your produce in, is it clean? Has your dog or cat just been in there with dog and cat dander and hair everywhere? Make sure, use your common sense, that it is a clean area, clean way to transport your produce. Also include in the post-harvest handling, include a way that you are tracking both where your produce goes and where it has come from. Where the seeds came from, whether you ordered them from Johnny's or Paramount or some other seed producer, where they came from, when you used them, when you used these seeds, when you planted, when you transplanted, when you harvested, where that harvest went. Be sure that you are able to track all of that produce, so this, if something does happen, you can say, well, the same batch went to 3 different stores and 2 restaurants. I need to recall that. You make 5 calls. You go pick up the tainted produce, and you've saved a whole lot of people from becoming sick, something like that. So be able, in your post-harvest handling, be able to make sure that you can trace where your produce has come from, the seeds have come from, also where your produce has gone, your harvest has gone. Water purity, something else that's very big. Again, for hydroponic farmers, this is a lot easier issue to deal with. The majority of our hydroponics farmers, the produce is from a municipal source. And every municipal water source every year puts out a water analysis. You can get that analysis. If they don't put it out, you can get a sample of your water, send it to AmHydro or to a lab and get a water analysis. It's very inexpensive. It's easy to do. And you can make sure your water is pure. You get the certification back. You include that in your food safety manual. If the water comes from a well, have the well tested. Have it tested 2 or 3 times a year to make sure that you are continuing to get pure water that you can mix the nutrients in for your hydroponic crop. So we've got worker health and hygiene. We've talked about post-harvest handling. We've talked about water purity. Now, those are the 3 main things, but also want to talk about developing a farm food and farm safety plan. This goes into your safety manual, and it is included with all of that. It's a manual that will grow. You include all of your policies. A policy might be anybody who works at this farm will undergo hand washing training, something like that. Any visitors who come to the farm will be required to clean their shoes off or something like that. Whatever your policies are, write them up, put them in your food safety manual, and then make sure that you have a standard operating procedure that is to train your employees or have a way that your visitors to your greenhouse can log in and log out. Therefore, you can go back and you can see, oh, I see that we had 3 visitors today, and they all stayed, each one stayed about an hour, and they all left, and they all followed the standard operating procedures, they all followed our policies. This is very important when a GAP certification inspector comes. They will want to see that your farm, that you are doing everything you can to make sure that your produce is safe to pass on to the consumer. So in your food safety plan, you might include a plot plan of your farm. This is the size of my greenhouse. It's where the doors are located. Outside of my farm, there's a creek running over here. There are trees here, something like that. This is where I propagate the plants. This is where the nursery is, and I transplant them. Something like that. Include the policies. Include your standard operating procedures, your SOPs. Include any training schedules. We have quarterly employee hand washing training, and all the employees sign in, and that roster gets included in your food safety plan. So when inspection time comes, you can say, yes, indeed, I train my employees to wash their hands. I train my employees in good hygiene. Planting schedules. I plant on Tuesdays, and I planted 4 trays of arugula, and the arugula came from Johnny's, and here's the lot number, and this is the date I planted on. I transplanted 4 trays of arugula from propagation into the nursery channel, and on this date, and then transplanted from nursery, excuse me, I transplanted from nursery onto finishing channel, and then the harvest schedules. I harvested 5 channel of arugula and sent it to Joe's restaurant, and I got 20 bunches of basil, and it went to the grocery store. And you're including all of that in your food safety plan, and all of those schedules, and all of those policies, and all of those standard operating procedures, and anybody who visits your farm, and they sign in and they sign out, and your employees sign in and sign out, when they were there, on what days, and that they indeed have washed their hands. All of that kind of stuff gets included in your food safety plan. When you begin to look at it like that, it's when you look at the federal regulation, it can be daunting. I've got several thick binders on my desk back at the office of food safety. But when you begin to break it down and see what does apply to my farm, a lot of it is common sense, and a lot of it is, the government wants the same thing we want. The government wants safe to consume produce, and that's what we don't want. We don't want to make anybody sick. We want our farm to have a bad reputation. So we can do this. AmHydro can help you. In fact, for sticking with us through this webinar, we've got an exclusive deal to all our attendees. And if you use that code in our online store, you can get 50% off a food safety consultation package. And just use that discount code as you buy that package from our online store at amhydro.com. Let's see, have we got any questions? Okay, I think the technical glitches got the majority of them. But again, this webinar has been recorded, and it will be available for you to replay, and you can take with it. If this does spark any questions, go ahead and let us know at info@amhydro.com, any questions you might have. If you're interested in the food safety consultation package, go ahead and sign up for that and give us a call to set that up. And we will go beyond this introduction to food safety, and we will take it to the next level, because we too care about your success as a hydroponic farmer. Let's see, next month we are going to be talking about Ask the Experts. We've got some great experts on tap. We've got a lot of knowledge here at American Hydroponics, and we want to share that with you. So be sure. Yeah, make sure your policies are on hand for the inspector. That becomes a part of your food safety manual, and you need to write those, type those policies up, and include them as a part of your food safety manual. That's crucial.
Another question?
Another question.
Do greenhouses generally use a third-party audit?
Yes, they can. Yeah, greenhouses have to have a third-party audit if they want to be GAP certified. And you'll have to check with your local state. Probably your agricultural extension will be able to help you with that. But yeah, third-party auditor. And a lot of these auditors, they're not bad people. They'll come in and say, you know, you need to address this, this, and this. And that's very helpful. You address those things. The inspector comes back and says, hey, you've taken care of that. This is a good operation. And you include all of that stuff and the inspector's certification in your food safety manual, and you're good to go.
Okay,
another question?
What determines farm size for the FSMA regulations?
Back on, let me see if I can find it. The farm size was determined by the amount of produce sold. And so you see that over $500,000 in sales a year is working on compliance this year. Between $250,000 and $500,000 a year in produce sales is next year. And then smaller farms from $25,000 to $250,000 a year of produce sold, it will be the following year, 2 years, 3 years from now. And then again, less than $25,000 a year is not affected by FSMA, but we still want to produce safe to consume produce. Other questions? Not so far. Once again, tune in, take advantage of our free offer here. This recording will be sent to you. It'll be emailed to you. And next month, we're going to have Ask the Experts. We've got some wonderful experts lined up for us to join us in May, on Thursday, May 18th.
One more quick question.
One more quick question.
How do you create lot numbers?
How do you create lot numbers? The best way to do this, it'd probably be there's on seeds. Lot numbers will come on seeds. And you can do that with a combination of that seed lot number and then a date, something like that. Any other advice? They have a lot number on the seed package and then the date planted. Okay? That's all we have time for right now. Once again, this recording will be sent out to everybody who registered for this webinar. Sorry for the technical difficulties at the beginning. Anyway, it was good to spend the afternoon with you. Again, I'm Paul from American Hydroponics. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to let us know at info@amhydro.com. Thank you.